In opposition to the Kantian principle of the dignity of man, I should be inclined to lay down the following rule. When you come into contact with a man, no matter whom, do not attempt an objective appreciation of him according to his worth and dignity. Do not consider his bad will or his narrow understanding and perverse ideas, as the former may easily lead you to hate and the latter to despise him. But fix your attention only upon his sufferings, his needs, his anxieties, his pains. Then you will always feel your kinship with him. You will sympathize with him. And instead of hatred or contempt, you will experience a commiseration that alone is the peace to which the gospel calls us. The way to keep down hatred and contempt is certainly not to look for a man's alleged dignity, but, on the contrary, to regard him as an object of pity. Man is at bottom a savage, horrible beast. We know it if only in the business of taming and restraining him, which we call civilization. Hence it is that we are terrified if now and then his nature breaks out. Wherever and whenever the locks and chains of law and order fall off and give place to anarchy, he shows himself for what he is. But it is unnecessary to wait for anarchy in order to gain enlightenment on this subject. 100 records, old and new, produce the conviction that in his unrelenting cruelty, man is no way inferior to the tiger and the hyena. A forcible example is supplied by a publication of the year 1841 entitled Slavery and the Internal Slave Trade in the United States of North America, being replies to questions transmitted by the British Anti-Slavery Society to the American Anti-Slavery Society. This book constitutes one of the heaviest indictments against the human race. No one can put it down without a feeling of horror, and few without tears. For whatever the reader may have ever heard, or imagined, or dreamt, of the unhappy condition of slavery, or indeed of human cruelty in general, it will seem small to him when he reads of the way in which those devils in human form, those bigoted, church-going, strictly Sabbatarian rascals, and in particular the Anglican priests among them, treated their innocent black brothers who by wrong and violence had got into their diabolical clutches. Other examples are furnished by Schuette's Travels in Peru, in the description which he gives of the treatment of the Peruvian soldiers at the hands of their officers, and by MacLeod's Travels in Eastern Africa, where the author tells of the cold-blooded and truly devilish cruelty with which the Portuguese in Mozambique treat their slaves. But we need not go for examples to the New World, that obverse side of our planet. In the year 1848, it was brought to life that in England, not in one, but apparently in 100 cases within a brief period, a husband had poisoned his wife or vice versa, or both had joined in poisoning their children, or in torturing them slowly to death by starving and ill-treating them, with no other object than to get the money for burying them which they had insured in the burial clubs against their death. For this purpose a child was often insured in several, even in as many as 20 clubs at once. Details of this character belong indeed to the blackest pages in the criminal records of humanity. But, when all is said, it is the inward and innate character of man, this God par excellence of the pantheists, from which they and everything like them proceed. In every man there dwells, first and foremost, a colossal egoism, which breaks the bounds of right and justice with the greatest freedom, as everyday life shows on a small scale, and as history on every page of it on a large.